The message pulsed like a heartbeat through the void, faint and full of desperation. Encoded in layers of mathematical constants, its meaning was unmistakable, a plea. "Help us! We are dying! We have no one left to ask." For 5 years it had echoed across the stars, bouncing through decaying comm buoys in the graveyards of forgotten satellites. The origin was traced to a little-known world, Sera 7, a planet once vibrant with life, now barely clinging to habitability. Its skies were choked in acid vapor, oceans turned brackish, and seismic storms had split cities down to their bedrock. The Council of Zenith Powers had heard the call and ignored it. Sera 7 had no resources to barter, no military to pledge, and no strategic value. To the dominant civilizations of the galaxy, they were expendable, a footnote in an indifferent ledger of interstellar priorities. But Earth heard it. Inside the SolNet listening array on Mars' Elysium Plateau, Dr. Mira Nayugan bolted upright in her chair. Her screen flickered, bringing a stream of encoded pulses into resolution. "Director Chen," she called, voice tight with wonder and urgency. "We have a ping. Alien. Repeating. Confirmed 5-year cycle. Non-commercial. High priority." Chen leaned over, studying the playback. "Can you isolate the source?" "Already have. Sector 8Q, edge of the far reach. The system's flagged as Class D. No major civilizations present. But this is a distress beacon." Chen's gaze hardened. "Push it up the chain. Priority Alpha. Let the Alliance Council know." Within 2 days, Earth's Unified Planetary Alliance convened in Geneva. They listened to the playback in silence. Some argued for caution. This could be a trap, a political ruse, a siphon for scarce resources. But others remembered Earth's own near extinction, climate collapse, orbital conflicts, the brink of societal ruin. President Ayana Ruiz stood, dark eyes fierce. "We have faster-than-light capability. We have relief fleets, and we have a duty. This is not just who we are. It's who we became because no one came for us." The vote was unanimous. Operation Radiant Reach was approved. 6 weeks later, the humanitarian vessel Artemis Rising, flanked by 3 auxiliary ships loaded with terraformers, med units, and diplomatic aids, cut through the void at 40 times the speed of light. On its bridge stood Commander Elias Vance, a career naval officer turned relief mission director. "Status, Lieutenant Choi?" "On course for Sera 7. Arrival in 36 hours. All systems nominal." Beside him, Dr. Imani Kessler, Earth's foremost environmental recovery expert, tapped data streams on her holodisplay. The planet's atmosphere is 68% unbreathable. Surface flora nearly extinct. There's evidence of a last-ditch shield grid around one major population center. They've been hanging on by threads. Vance nodded solemnly. "Let's make sure the threads hold." On Sera 7, in the citadel city of Keltharan, Prime Mediator Jaren Sol watched the skies through stained, heat-cracked windows. Behind him, dozens of citizens lay on cots, lungs wheezing beneath filtration masks, their skin pallid. "Still nothing?" he asked. Communications Officer Lyra shook her head. Same silence, no replies, no signs of incoming vessels. Jaren lowered his head. "Then we prepare the names." "Names, sir?" "For remembrance. We write them down, even if no one ever reads them." But in the deep atmosphere above Sera 7, space twisted, and Artemis Rising emerged. The silence was about to end. As the Artemis Rising entered Sera 7's exosphere, the ship's hull groaned against layers of corrosive atmosphere. Pilots compensated for violent electrical surges as blue lightning licked the vessel's shields. It was like pushing through a planetary tantrum. Wind howled in superheat bands, and acidic fog obscured visual scanners. Commander Vance braced himself as turbulence rocked the bridge. "Stabilizers holding at 92%. Surface beacon locked. Visual contact in 5 minutes," Choi reported. Dr. Kessler tapped her fingers nervously. "These readings? It's a miracle anyone's still alive down there." Vance nodded. "Then it's time we gave them more than miracles." On the surface, Jaren Sol stared at the crimson sky as a streak of white fire cut through the murk. The ancient sensors of Keltharan screamed with unfamiliar tones. Unknown vessel breaching atmosphere, Lyra shouted. It's not Tarson, not local. It's from Earth. Their signal matches our original broadcast frequency. Jaren's mouth moved, but no sound came out. Then he ran to the landing fields, to Hope. The Artemis Rising descended like a star reborn. Automated gantries extended. Landing legs cut into the blackened rock. The moment the bay doors opened, the people of Ceres 7 saw something they hadn't in years. Humans. Not hollow broadcasts, not fading stories. Real, breathing, armored figures emerging from the storm. Dr. Kessler was the first onto the ground, her exosuit hissing as filtration units kicked in. She stepped forward and extended a gloved hand to the group gathered at the base of the broken landing pad. I'm Dr. Imani Kessler. Earth sent us. We heard your call. Jaren stumbled forward, his voice hoarse. You came. After all this time, after everyone else turned away. Commander Vance approached, saluting in crisp motion. We don't turn away. Not anymore. Behind him, engineers deployed rapid inflation med tents and environmental stabilizers. Within minutes, filtration systems cleared a pocket of breathable air. Children, elderly, and wounded were ushered in. It wasn't perfect. It was just the beginning. Hours later, Jaren sat with Vance and Kessler inside the command tent, surrounded by sensor maps and damage reports. How bad is it? Vance asked. Jaren gestured solemnly. We were once a population of 43 million. We have less than 1 million now. Disease, famine, quakes, storms. We survived because we were too stubborn to stop. But we're dying in pieces. Kessler nodded. We brought terraforming seeds, biostabilizers, solar turbines. We can't fix everything overnight, but we can make this world breathe again. Jaren leaned back, exhaustion in his bones, hope in his eyes. You're not just saving us, you're changing everything. Outside, for the first time in years, Ceres 7's winds didn't scream. They sang. By the second day, the transformation had begun. Massive solar arrays bloomed like mechanical petals across the plains outside Keltharn. Drone swarms hovered, stitching together atmospheric filters that hissed as they drank in poison and exhaled hope. The air, still toxic, was beginning to shift. Readings ticked upward, 0.1% here, another there. Small changes, but real ones. Commander Vance stood atop the West Ridge, overlooking the progress. Behind him, Kessler examined soil samples beside a cluster of native botanists. It's responding, she said. This isn't dead ground. It's dormant. All it needed was a spark. Vance turned, lifting a brow. And how long until it wakes up for good? With a few more seed drops? Weeks. A year for stability. He nodded. We'll be here as long as it takes. Jaren Saul moved through the refugee quarters now established beside the landing site. Every step brought greetings, hugs, quiet tears. Some still couldn't believe the ships were real. He entered a temporary school dome where children, once listless and coughing, now sat upright, eyes bright, learning again. On the projector was an image of Earth, blue and distant. A small girl raised her hand. Is it true Earth has trees that talk to each other? The aide nodded. In a way, yes. Through their roots, they share water, warnings, even nutrients. The children gasped, and Jaren's eyes welled with silent gratitude. In the command dome, Kessler, Vance, and Jaren met for a progress check. We've restored power to 3 more districts, Vance said. The dome shields will hold through the next storm cycle. We're preparing relocation for outlying survivors to central zones. Kessler added, we've got water purification at 78% efficiency, enough to supply the whole valley. But Jaren looked troubled. We've received a warning, he said quietly, from the northern border, a mining faction, Tarson Collective. They've caught wind of your arrival. They see opportunity. And Ceres has no defenses. Vance's jaw tightened. We didn't come for war, but we'll protect what we rebuild. That night on the high cliffs, Earth engineers projected a sky dome, a visual field that showed what the skies should look like. Stars, clouds, a sunset painted with colors Saris hadn't seen in decades. The people gathered in silence. For some, it was the first time they'd seen hope in color. And beneath the ash, the first flowers bloomed. The fourth day dawned under a heavy sky. Thunderclouds rolled over Keltharin, not with rain, but with tension. Reports trickled in. Automated scouts intercepted, supply drones missing, and 3 outposts along the northern perimeter had gone silent. The Tarson Collective was moving. Inside the command tent, Vance paced. "I've requested orbital scans, but the interference from the ion storms is blocking most readings," Choi explained. Jaren folded his hands tightly. "The Tarson don't ask, they take. We've resisted them this long only because we had nothing left for them to want." "Well, now you do," Vance muttered. In the medical dome, Kessler treated an elder with burns from a collapsed geothermal shaft. Her hands were steady, but her thoughts drifted. Each life saved felt like a defiant breath against the darkness. But that darkness was moving. Later, she joined Vance atop the defensive ridge. "We came to help," she said. "But if this escalates, if Tarson fires first, then we make sure they regret it," he replied. "Every system in Artemis is outfitted for more than medicine." That evening, Jaren held a broadcast. "We are not helpless," he said, voice steady across every district. "We are not abandoned, and we will not be prey." In the background, Artemis Rising's defense cannons rotated quietly, not raised, but not idle either. From orbit, a scout relay pinged. Ships on approach, 8, maybe more. Heavy industrial freighters, reconfigured for siege. No official banners, just the grim gray hulls of Tarson's private militia. Inside Artemis, Commander Vance stood on the bridge, fists clenched. "This isn't just a relief mission anymore," he said. "This is a line in the sand, and humanity's answer is still overwhelming." The air over Keltharin was sharp with anticipation. On the outer perimeter, makeshift defenses had become fortified barriers. Automated turrets hummed quietly, while militia volunteers, human and Sarasi alike, trained side by side. Commander Vance stood in front of a tactical display with Lieutenant Choi and Dr. Kessler. "Tarson's ships are holding at the orbital edge," Choi said. "No direct comms. They're waiting for what? I don't know." Vance narrowed his eyes. "They're gauging our response. Typical private military tactics." Kessler frowned. "We're still broadcasting peaceful intent, right? Medical, terraforming, zero aggression? All channels, but they'll test us. They always do." In the council dome, Jaren addressed a group of Sarasi community leaders. "We must be ready. Artemis brought strength, but it is our unity that holds the line." A former engineer named Calais raised her hand. "If they attack, can Earth truly protect us?" Jaren nodded. "They already are. But if we want to keep our world, we must protect it with them." That evening, a low pulse of alarm echoed through the dome corridors. One of Artemis's scout drones had been found, shot down outside the perimeter. Its memory core was missing. "A probe action," Vance said coldly. "They're watching our response times, targeting priorities." He activated Artemis's defense grid. Shield generators shimmered into full visibility across the hills. "We hold position, but from now on, we watch everything." Hours passed. Then the first dropships descended. Not an assault yet, but clearly posturing. They landed 30 kilometers north of Keltharin, deploying sensor towers, mobile turrets, and crawler vehicles. A message finally came through. A single voice, deep, grating, and laced with disdain. "We claim this region under corporate salvage protocol. All inhabitants will evacuate. No compensation." Vance responded personally. "This world sent a call for help. Humanity answered. And if you raise a hand against Saris again, you'll find we didn't come lightly." Kessler stood beside Vance, watching the horizon. Distant plumes of dust marked the slow, creeping presence of Tarson's landing force. "They'll push," she said. Vance nodded. "And when they do, we show them what overwhelming looks like." The warning came in the dark of night. Motion sensors flared along the eastern perimeter. Unmarked drones skimming low, probing, darting between signal towers. A heartbeat later, the comm center went silent. Then the outer shield grid dimmed. Commander Vance was already in armor by the time the first shot echoed across the valley. "Report!" he barked, storming into the command center. Choi, pale but composed, tapped rapidly on her console. "Sabotage. Tarsan forces disabled grid junctions, Alpha through Delta. They're testing breach points. Mobilize counter-patrols. No lethal fire, yet." "Yet?" Kessler asked, arriving beside him. He glanced at her. "If they break the line, we respond. Fully." On the north slope, militia units scrambled. Floodlights flickered on. Sarasi and human defenders crouched behind improvised barriers, awaiting the next move. In the silence, even breath felt too loud. And then, movement. A wall of armored walkers rolled over the ridgeline, not firing, not charging, just advancing. Intimidation made manifest. "Hold position," Vance ordered through comms. "This is their bluff." The lead walker halted 10 meters from the defense line. A speaker crackled to life. "Withdraw. Final warning. You're standing in the way of sovereign claim." Jaren stepped up beside Vance. "This is sovereign soil," he said. "Our children are buried here. Our people bled here. You want to take that? You'll have to go through all of us." The speaker went silent. Then the walker stepped back. A test, not passed, but measured. That night, Kessler sat alone beside one of the atmospheric filters, watching it hum and glow. Vance joined her. "They're going to escalate," she said. "We both know it." He nodded slowly. "We won't let them, and if they force it, we'll show them what desperation forged into unity looks like." In the distance, the wind picked up, but for once it carried the scent of clean air. By dawn, Ceres 7 held its breath. The Tarsan collective had retreated just far enough to regroup, but their presence was now undeniable. Massive crawler tanks dotted the horizon, while armored patrols circled outlying zones like vultures. Commander Vance stood in full gear before a projection of the valley grid. Red indicators flashed across vulnerable sectors. "Fortify Southern Gate, triple redundancy on comm relays. I want artillery stations reinforced and evac routes cleared." Kessler entered, her face pale from a night without rest. "Water reclamators are stable. Crops in 3 sectors show signs of viable regrowth. We're healing, Elias. We can't let them stop that." Vance's voice was low. "They won't." That afternoon, a delegation from the Tarsan command arrived. 5 heavily armed envoys. Their armor gleamed, but it was their posture, arrogant, practiced, that made Sarasi guards bristle. They met in the central dome, flanked by Vance, Kessler, and Jaren. "Your occupation is unlawful," the Tarsan speaker said flatly. "We claim salvage rights under Outer Trade Accord, 87C. You have no recognized jurisdiction here." "This planet called for help," Jaren replied. Earth answered, "The accord doesn't cover humanitarian response. You interfere with corporate claim. That is a violation." Vance leaned forward. "Then consider this our declaration of protection. Interfere again, and you'll face consequences beyond what your contracts cover." The delegation left. Hours later, the first mortar shell struck a shield generator near Sector 9. No casualties this time. Vance activated emergency protocols. "Alert every unit. This is no longer deterrence. Prepare to defend." Across the valley, defenses lit up. Railguns charged. Sarasi youth joined the militia, not out of rage but out of resolve. Humanity had arrived with medicine. Now it brought steel. The first clash came at nightfall. A barrage of incendiary missiles launched from the Tarsan forward camp, streaking across the horizon. They arced in silence, then lit the sky with fire. The outer perimeter of Sector 12 erupted. Shield generators overloaded and sparked out, casting the district into darkness. Within minutes, the Artemis Command Center flared red. "Sector 12 hit!" Choi yelled. "Casualties unknown. Multiple structure collapses." Vance was already in motion. "Deploy fire squads, activate drone support, mobilize the West Battery. No more warnings. We hold the line here." Sarasi and Earth forces moved as one. It wasn't polished, it was raw, desperate, human. Fire teams wove between falling debris, pulling survivors, suppressing advancing drones. Railguns lit up the valley, firing into the darkness where Tarsan's shadows crept. Kessler ran triage beneath the medical dome, hands soaked in plasma gel and sweat. She refused to look at the screens showing incoming hostiles. She didn't have time for fear. Above, Artemis Rising opened its forward turrets. Twin ion cannons glowed, then unleashed coordinated beams that split the enemy front like lightning made solid. Jaren stood at the Civic Tower, eyes hollow. "How many lost?" Kessler replied without turning. "Not as many as we could have. We stopped them, but only just." Vance entered, blood on his sleeve. "They'll try again, bigger, bolder. They're not here for salvage anymore. They want a spectacle, a message." Jaren looked at them both. "Then we send one back, loud and clear." In the hangar bays, Earth's counteroffensive launched. Drones, walkers, anti-siege bots. They didn't push to conquer. They pushed to protect. Each movement carved a promise into the dirt. "We're still here, and we won't be moved." Far above, the stars bore silent witness, as Sarah 7 declared, not with pleas, but with fire, that its voice would not be silenced again. The night sky was alight with war. As the second wave of Tarsan dropships thundered through the upper atmosphere, Artemis Rising's orbital defense grid engaged fully. Precision strikes turned incoming carriers into streaks of ash before they breached low orbit. Commander Vance stood at the central war table, his eyes hard. "No hesitation, no overreach. This is where we hold." On the ground, automated rail platforms delivered barrage after barrage, shielding the civilian sectors while infantry teams pushed back against encroaching armor columns. The defensive line, though cracked, did not break. Jaren moved through the command ranks, offering hands, words, solidarity. "Every step we hold is a future we keep," he told them. At the edge of the battlefield, a Tarsan walker broke through the defenses before being struck by a human Sarasi fire team in coordinated assault. It fell in flames, and with it, the myth of Tarsan invincibility began to collapse. Inside the medical dome, Kessler collapsed from exhaustion. Her gloves were soaked red. A young Sarasi girl offered her a canteen. "Thank you," Kessler whispered, her voice hoarse. "For saving my mother," the girl said. "For making the sky ours again." On the fourth night of battle, the tide turned. A final push, led by Earth's elite response unit and Sarasi resistance veterans, overwhelmed the Tarsan command post. With their central communications jammed and their orbits shattered, the remaining mercenaries fled into the highlands, where they were hunted down and captured. The stars were silent again. But this time not because hope was gone. This time because victory echoed louder. As the sun rose over Kel Tharan, smoke curling into the sky, Vance stood with Jaren and Kessler on the ridge. Below them, the valley bustled, not with battle, but rebuilding. "We held," Kessler said softly. "You saw, we answered," Jaren corrected. "And the galaxy heard us." Vance nodded. "And if they didn't, we'll remind them." Weeks passed. What once was battlefield slowly became cradle. Craters were filled, shattered roads reformed, and the skeletons of burned towers now bore scaffolding and laughter. Children played where mortars once screamed. A delegation from Earth arrived under clearer skies. Envoys, scientists, engineers. They didn't come for war. They came for future. In the central plaza of Kel Tharan, a new monument stood. A shard of Artemis Rising's armor, scorched from the battle, mounted on a plinth of native stone. Inscribed at its base, "We heard your voice. Now the stars will hear ours." Jaren gave a final address to the people of Ceres and Earth alike. "We were forgotten, then remembered. But most of all, we endured, not by strength of weapons, but by strength of will. Ceres 7 lives, and no power in the galaxy will forget us again." Beside him, Vance and Kessler stood, warriors who came not to conquer, but to heal. From orbit, Artemis Rising prepared to return. Not in retreat, but in triumph. "Where to now, Commander?" Choi asked. Vance smiled faintly. "Wherever another voice goes unheard, we'll answer. That's what humanity does." As the ship ascended, Ceres 7 grew smaller beneath them, but its fire, its hope, had already reached the stars. Which moment struck you the hardest? Comment below and share your thoughts. Like, subscribe, and share this journey if you believe every call for help deserves an answer. Until next time, stand together, fight for the forgotten, and remember, hope answers louder.